Hello everyone, welcome back. This is The Power of Now, a guide to spiritual life by Tolle. We're continuing for yesterday from chapter 7, and then we'll go on to chapter 8. Chapter 7, it talks about portals into the unmanifested. Continue that, and then we'll go on to chapter 8, which is Enlightened Relationships. Almost done with the book. We have 2 more chapters left of this book, then we'll be done, and we'll be moving on after this to the next books. Be reading in my project. After this, we'll be reading Untethered Soul, A Journey Beyond Yourself into Soul Recognition Connections. And then we'll be reading into 8-week couples relationship. Something to help you with relationships, to help you be stable, help you not have any complications, understand soul connections, soulmates, twin flames, all the above. It's a therapy workbook and 8-week course to help you understand about relationships, love, and commitments. So now I'll be continuing on from chapter 7, The Power of Now. Okay, the true nature of space and time. Now consider this: if there were nothing but silence, it wouldn't exist for you. You wouldn't know what is it. Only when sounds appears does silence come into being. Similarity, if there were only space without any objects in space, it wouldn't exist for you. Imagine yourself as a point of consciousness floating into the vastness of space. No stars, no galaxies, just emptiness. Sudden space wouldn't be vast anymore. It would not be there at all. There would be no speed, no movement from here but to there. At least 2 points of reference are needed for distance and space to come into being. Space comes into being the moment the one becomes 2, and as 2 becomes the 10,000 things. As Lao Tse calls the manifested word, space becomes more and more vast. So world and space arise simultaneously. Nothing could be without space, yet space is nothing. Before the universe came into the being, before the Big Bang, if you like, there wasn't a vast empty space waiting to be filled. There was no space, as there was no thing. There was only the unmanifested, the one who became the 10,000 things. Suddenly, space seemed to be there and enabled many things to be. Where does it come from? Was it created by God or to accommodate the universe? Of course not. Space is no thing. So it was never created. Go out to a clear night and look up in the sky. Thousands of stars you can see naked eye, no more than the unmanifest, infinitesimal fraction of what is there. Over 100 billion galaxies can be detected with the most powerful telescopes. Each galaxy an island, universe with billions of stars. Yet what is more awe-inspiring is the infinity of space itself, the depth of stillness that allows all the magnificence to be. Nothing could be more awe-inspiring and more majestic than the inconceivable vastness and stillness of space. And yet, what is it? Emptiness, vast emptiness, what appears to be space in the universe perceived through the mind and the sense of unmanifested itself externalized. It is the body of God. And the greatest miracle of this is the stillness of the vastness enables the universe to be. It is not just out there in the space, it's also within you. When you utterly and totally present, you encounter it as an inner space of no mind. Within you is a vast depth in not an extinction, spatial extinction, and the ultimately misconception of infinite depth, an attribute of one transcendental reality. According to Einstein, space and time are not separate. I don't really understand it, but I think that it's saying the fourth dimensional space. He calls it the space-time continuum. Yes, it is the perceived external as space as time is ultimately illusory, but they contain a core of truth. There is two essential attributes of God, infinity and eternity. Perceive it as if one had external existence outside you. Within you, both space and time have an inner equivalent that reveals their true nature as well as your own. Whereas space is a still infinitely deep realm, and no mind of inner equivalent of the time is presence, awareness in the eternal now. Remember that there is no distinction between them. When space and time are realized within the unmanifested no mind and presence external, space and time continue to exist for you. But there become much more or less important. The world too continues to exist for you, but will not bind you anymore. Hence, the ultimate purpose of the world lies not within the world, but in transcendence of the world. Just as you would not be conscious of space if there was no objects of space, the world is needed for unmanifested to be realized. You may have heard the Buddha saying, if there was no illusion, there would be no enlightenment. It is, though, that the world and ultimately through you, that the unmanifested knows itself. You are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. That is how important you are. Conscious death. Apart from dreamless sleep, which I mentioned already, there is no other involuntary portal. It opens up briefly at the time of the physical death. Even if you have missed the opportunities for spiritual realization, that your lifetime in one last portal will open up for you immediately after the body has died. There are countless accounts by people who had a visual impression of the portal, radiant light, and then returned from them that was commonly known as near-death experience. Many of them also spoke of a sense of blissful serenity and deep peace. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it is described a luminous splendor of the colorless light of emptiness, which is, say, your own true self. This portal opens up very briefly unless you have already encountered the dimension of the manifested in your lifetime. You will likely miss it. Most people carry too much of residential resistance, too much fear, too much attachment and sensory experience, too much identification with the unmanifested world so that the portal turn into away from fear, and you lose consciousness. Most of what happens after involuntary and automatic, eventually there will be another round of birth and death. Their presence was strong enough for the conscious immortality. So going through the portal does not mean annihilation. As with all other portals, your radiant truth nature remains, but not the personality in the case. Whatever is real, no true value in your personality, no true nature shining through. This is never lost. Nothing that is value, nothing that is real, ever lost. Approaching death and death itself, the dissolution of the physical form, is always a great opportunity for spiritual realization. This opportunity is tragically missed most of the time when we live in a culture that is almost totally ignorant of the death. It's almost totally ignorant of anything that truly matters. Every portal is a portal of death. The death of false self, which you go through it, you seize it, derive your identity from the psychological, man-made form. You then realize that death is an illusion, just the identification of which form of illusion. The end of illusion that death is. It is a painful only as long as you cling to illusion. The end of chapter 7, beginning of chapter 8. Chapter 8 is Enlightened Relationships.
Enter the now from wherever you are. I always thought that true enlightenment is not possible except through the love and relationship between a man and a woman. Isn't this makes us whole again? How can one's life fulfilled until what happens? Is that true in your experiences? What has this happened to you? Not yet, but how could this be otherwise? I know that it would happen. In other words, you are waiting for the event in time to save you. Is not. Is this not the core error that we have been talking about? Salvation is not elsewhere in place or time. It is here and now. What does that statement mean? Salvation is here and now. I don't understand it. I don't even know what salvation means. Most people pursue physical pleasures or various forms of psychological gratifications because they will believe that those things will make them happy or free them from a feeling or fear or lack. Happiness may be perceived as a heightened sense of a aliveness attached to physical pleasure, or a more secure and more complete sense of self-intent through some a psychological gratification. This is the search for salvation from a state of unsatisfactoriness and insufficiency. Invariably, any satisfactions that they obtain is short-lived, so the conditions of satisfaction or fulfillment is usually projected once again into an imaginary point away from the here and now. When I obtain this, or am I free of that, then I will be okay. This is an unconscious mindset that creates the illusions of the salvations in the future. True salvation is fulfillment, peace, life in all its fullness. It is to be who you are, to feel within you the good that has no opposites, the joy of being that depends on nothing outside itself. It is felt not as a passing experience, but as a abiding present. In theistic language, it is to know God, not as something outside you, but as your own innermost instance, as essence. True salvation is know yourselves to the inseparations, part of the timeless and formless one life form, while all the access derives its being. True salvation is a state of freedom from fear, from suffering, from a perceived state of lack of insufficiency, and therefore from all wanting, needing, graspings, and clinging. It is freedom from compulsive thinking, from negativities, and above all, from past to futures as a psychological need. Your mind is telling you that you cannot get there from here. Something needs to happen, or you need to become this or that before you can be free and fulfilled. It is saying, in fact, that you need time, that you need to find, sort out, do, achieve, acquire, becomes, or understands what before you can be free to complete. You see times as means to salvation, whereas the truth is greatest obstacles to salvation. You think that you can't get there from where and who you are to this moment because you are not yet completed or good enough. But the truth is that here and now isn't only pointed from where you can get there. You get there by realizing that you are there already. You find God the moment you realize that you don't need to seek God. So there is no only way to salvation. Any conditions can be used, but no particular conditions is needed. However, there is only one point of access to access the now. There can be no salvations anyway from this moment. You are lonely and without a partner. Enter the now from there. You are in the relationship. Enter the now from there. There is nothing that you can do or attain that will get you closer to salvation, but it is at this moment. This may be hard to grasp, but the mind accustoms to thinking that everything whole while is in the future, nor can anything that you ever did or that was done to you in the past prevent you from saying yes to what is and taking your attention speaking into the now. You cannot do this in the future. You cannot do it now or not at all. Love, hate relationships, unless and until you access the consciousness of frequencies and presence. All relationships, and particularly intimate relationships, are deeply flawed and ultimately dysfunctional. This may seem perfect for a while, such as when you are in love, but invariably that appearance, performance, perfections can disrupt it as arguments, conflicts, dissatisfactions, and emotional or even physical violence occurs in increasing frequency. It seems that most love relationships becomes love-hate relationships before long. Love can be turned into a savage attack, feeling the hostilities or complete withdrawals of affections at the flip of a switch. This is considered normal. The relationship then oscillates while for a while, a few months or a few years between the polarities of love and hate. And it gives you the much pleasures as it gives you the pain. It is not common for couples who become addicted to those cycles. Their dramas makes them feel alive. When the balance between the positive, negative polarities is lost and the negative, destructive cycles occurs with increasing frequencies and intensity, while which tend to happen sooner or later, and it will not be long before the relationship finally collapses. It may appear that if you only that you could only eliminate the negative or destructive cycles, then then all would be well, and the relationship will flower beautifully. But Alice, this is not possible. The polarities are maturely interdependent. You cannot have one without the other. The positive already contains within itself the as yet unmanifested negative. Both are, in fact, different aspects of the same dysfunctions. I am speaking here of what it is commonly called a romantic relationships, not of true love, which is no opposites because it arises from beyond the mind. Love is a continuous state. It is that yet very rare as conscious human beings. Brief and elusive glimpses of love, however, are possible whenever there is a gap in the streams of mind. The negative side of a relationship is, of course, more easily recognizable and dysfunctional than the positive one. And it is also easier to recognize the source of negativities in your partner than to see in yourself. It can manifest to many forms: possessiveness, jealousies, control, withdrawals, and unspoken resentments, the need to be right, and sensitivities and self-absorptions, emotional demands, and uh, manipulations, the urge to argue, criticize, judge, blame, or attack anger, unconscious revenge for past pains inflicted by a parent, rage, and physical violence. On the positive side, you are in love with your partner. This is at first a deeply satisfying state. You feel intensely alive. Your existence has suddenly become meaningful because someone needs you, wants you, and makes you feel special, and you do the same for him or her. When you are together, you feel whole. The feeling can become so intense that the rest of the world fades into significance. However, You may also have noticed that there is a neediness and a clinging qualities to that intensity. You become addicted to others persons. He or she acts on you like a drug. You are in high. You are in a high when the drugs is there is available. But even the possibility or thought that he or she might no longer be there for you can lead to jealousy, possessiveness, attempts to manipulations through emotional blackmail, blaming, and accused fears of loss. If the other person does leave you, this can give rise to this more intense hostility or the most profound grief and despair. In an instant, loving tenderness can turn into savage attacks or dreadful grief. Dreadful grief. Where is love is now? Can love change into opposites in an instant? Was love was it love in the first place, or just an addiction or addictive grasping and clinging? Addictions and the search for wholeness.
Okay, so addiction and search for wholeness. Why should we become addicted to another person? The reason why the romantic love relationships in such intense and universally sought after experience as it seems off to offer liberation from a deep-seated state of fear, need to lack incompleteness that is part of a human condition. It is unredeemed and enlightenment state. There is a physical well-being and psychological dimension to this state. On the physical level, you are obviously not whole, nor will call you ever be. You will either you are either a man or woman, which is say you half one half of the whole. On this level, the longing for wholeness, the return to one's oneness manifests as a female-male attraction or man-to-man attraction. Um, Man for a woman, needs for a man. It is almost irresistible urge for union. The opposite energy polarity. The root of the physical surge is a spiritual one. Sexual union is the closest that you can get to the state of the physical level. That is why that is the most deeply satisfying experience in the physical realm can offer. But sexual union is more than just a fleeting glimpse of wholeness. It's an instant bliss. As long as it's unconsciously sought that a meaning for salvation, you are seeking the end of duality on the level of the form where it cannot be found. You are given a tantalizing glimpse of heaven, but you're not allowed to dwell there and find yourself again in a separate body. On a psychological level, you the level of lack of incompleteness is if everything or anything even greater than the physical level. As long as you are identified with the mind, you have externally derived sense of self. That is to say, you get your sense of who you are from the things that you ultimately have done to do with who you are. Your social role, possessions, external experience, successes and failures, belief systems, and so on. The false mind self, the ego, feels vulnerable, insecure, and is always seeking new things to identify with to give it a feeling that it exists. But nothing is ever enough to give it the lasting fulfillment. Its fear remains, its sense of lack of neediness remains. But then the special relationship comes along. It seems to be the answer to all the ego's problems and meet its all needs. At least this is how it appears at first. All of the things that you derive your sense of self from before now becomes relatively significant. Insignificant, you have now become a single focal point that replaces them all, giving meaning of your life. Although through the define your identity, the person you are always in love with, you are no longer disconnected fragment into the uncaring universe. Or so it seems. Your world now has a center, the loved one. The fact that the center is outside you and that therefore you can have an externally derived sense of self that does not seem to matter at first. What matters is the underlying feelings of incompleteness, of fear, lack of unfulfillment, of the characteristic of the egoic state of it no longer there, or are they? Have they dissolved or do they do not continue to exist underneath a happy surface reality? If in your relationships you experience both love and opposite love, attack, emotional violence, or so on, it is likely you are confusing ego attachment and addictive clinging with love. You cannot love your partner one moment and attack him or the next. True love has no opposite. If your love has an opposite, then it is not love, but strong ego need for some complete and deeper sense of self. A need for the other person temporarily meets. If the ego substitute for salvation or short term, it almost does not feel like salvation. But there has come a point to your partner's behaves in which a way that fails to meet your needs, or rather than those of your ego. The feelings of the fear, pain, of lack of intrinsic part of egoic consciousness, but then has covered up the love relationship now resurface. Just as with the other addiction, you are on a high when a drug is available, but invariably there has come a time when a drug no longer works for you. When those painful feelings reappear, the feelings that you need more strongly than before, then what is more is now perceive your partner and the cause of those feelings. This means that you have a project them outward, project them outward, and attack them with the line of the savage violence that is part of your pain. This attack may awaken your partner's own pain, and then he or she now can under your attack. At this point, the ego is still unconsciously, hopefully attacked. Attempts of manipulation will sufficient of punishment to induce your partners to change their behavior, so that it could use them again to cover up for your pain. Every addiction arises from conscious refusal to face and move through your own pain. Every addiction starts off with pain and then ends with pain. Whatever the substance you are addicted to, the drugs, the alcohol, the food, the illegal drugs, the person, the sex, you are using something or somebody to cover up your pain. That is why after the initial euphoria has passed, there is so much unhappiness, so much pain in intimate relationships. They do not cause pain or unhappiness. They bring out the pain and unhappiness that you already have in you. Every addiction does that. Every addiction reaches out to the point where it does not work for you anymore, and then you feel the pain more intensely than ever. There is one reason why most people are always trying to escape from their present moment or seeking some kind of salvation in the future. The first thing that they might encounter if they focus their attention on is now on their own pain. And this is why they have fear. If they only had they knew how easy it is to access the now, the power of presence that dissolves the past and its pain, the reality that dissolves the illusion. If they only knew that how close they are to their own reality, how close to God, avoidance of relationships attempt to avoid pain and either and doesn't answer either. The pain is always there anyway. 3 failed relationships is many years of more likely to force them into an awakening than 3 years onto desert islands or shut away in your own. But if you could bring intense presence into your wholeness, that would work for you too. Okay, everyone, we'll continue on to part 2 of this chapter tomorrow. We have about 15 more pages and we're about to go eat. So you want to have a good day. And that was chapter 7 or chapter 8, part 1 of this chapter, which was Enlightened Relationships, that talks more about how to have a decent relationship and let go of the ego, and also understand that you have an inner battle within yourself versus you have to learn how to love yourself and help yourself instead of other people help you and help you focus on what needs to be done and more what's important in life. And we'll talk about that next time about the continuing of that chapter. Okay, everyone, have a good day.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good day.